Hello, Manchester Pride Conference. My name is Bhavik Pancholi. Thank you so much for having me, and I'm really looking forward to talking to you today about my experience as a gay Indian man, but also my roles working with organisations in inclusion and share some of my knowledge and hopefully help you to try and implement some of those, whether it's in your personal lives or also in the workplace. So I grew up in Leicester, so in the Midlands, in the 90s. And a lot of my growing up, those of you who know Leicester, it's very multicultural and ethnically diverse. So I saw lots of other people who looked like me. And that was great because I thought I kind of fit in. But I also knew that there was something different about me, something that I wasn't really sure about. And as I grew up and as the boys started to talk about liking girls and the girls started talking about liking boys, I began to realize what that difference was. I didn't have a word for it. Growing up in the 90s, and thank you to Margaret Thatcher, we weren't taught about same-sex relationships and having families that were outside of having a mom or a dad. And that made things a little confusing to navigate through, as I'm sure it was for so many of us today. When I grew up and started to have the words to understand what being gay meant, I'd heard it more as a slur and heard it more as a word that wasn't used in a positive way. I was quite uncomfortable with that, but mainly not because I was gay or didn't feel comfortable with knowing what gay meant, but more because I didn't think, coming from a South Asian background and a Indian household, that my family would understand or know what that meant. So those kind of intersectional identities, me being a gay man and me having an Indian identity, found it quite tricky to navigate. As I grew up and through school, college, and then going into the workplace, I became very comfortable in being me. And I was fortunate because I had teachers who encouraged me. I had family who embraced me. And when I went out into the workplace, and my colleagues and the people who I worked with and worked for absolutely did all of that. They encouraged me, they embraced me, they told me to be me and be me with skill. However, going into the workplace, I started to realize that almost people like me, people like us, didn't seem to exist. The more senior and the more I progressed in my career, and the tables that I sat around and looking around, I realized that I couldn't see people of color represented. If people were part of the LGBTQ plus community, they definitely weren't out. And that made me question, why weren't people brave enough or feel comfortable to say that they are part of our community? And a lot of that was because of the culture, culturally, internally at work, but also externally. And that's how I got involved in my work in inclusion. Because growing up, I didn't see role models. I didn't see the visibility of and representation of people in the public eye or at work that looked like you and I. I didn't have people who were gay and people of color, and I definitely didn't see people who were gay and Indian. So I started to realize that if I wanted to see change, I needed to be part of that change. So that's what I do a lot now. I try and use my voice to influence, to campaign for something better for people like me, for people like you. That's really important, and that's really powerful. And I've seen powerful and positive change and feedback on the back of that. People who have said that seeing representation in someone who looks like them has helped them to apply for a job or join an organization or have a conversation about their identity. When I talk about my identity, about being gay and Indian, and about the fact that coming from a South Asian background, my parents moved to the UK in the 70s. I thought that might be one of the biggest hurdles, being a gay Indian man. And it wasn't until I was 25 when I was asked by my parents if I was gay, and I came out to them, and they were super embracing. My parents saying that they apologized, first of all, that I had to live for 25 years without being able to talk to them, or feeling that I wasn't able to talk to them. My parents saying that I was their son before they knew I was gay, and they knew that I was, and I would always be their son, sorry, after. The bit that I found more tricky and more uncomfortable with was navigating the gay community. So being out, wanting to meet people, find my tribe, connect with people who might have had similar experiences to me. I found my Indian identity be a little bit more of a hurdle in connecting with the gay community. I found that the LGBTQ community, or gay men, when I was trying to make friends, were not as inviting or not as accepting as I would have wanted them to have been. And that for many years kind of created this stigma, and almost me then rejecting wanting to be part of that community. Not rejecting of my identity, I am who I am, but felt a bit uncomfortable with being around fellow LGBTQ plus people. And that's one of the reasons why I'm here today, because that was a real challenge. And I'm sure some of you may have felt like that, similar to how I felt on the receiving end. But also some of you may have been the people who were on the other side and have grown up and reflected and learnt on why that might have been the case in our behaviour. But also the reason that it's really important that I want to talk today is because often we see people who are cisgendered or are white gay men, but our community is much more than that. There are people from all different backgrounds, ethnicities. Some of us have disabilities. Some have neurodiversity. We are a true community of all genders. And if we don't have those communities or access to people in our own internal network, whether it's our friends or people at work, then what can we do to learn from other people? So some of the things that I've done is started to follow more people, different people to me, or people who I don't have in my immediate networks, to learn from them and hear about their experiences. Because if we want to really be a community about acceptance, about inclusion, and driving forward for more equality for our community, it's important to hear what are some of the challenges that our community face. And that is our whole community. So whether it's the L, the G, the B, the Q, the T, making sure we hear and speak to as many people as we can, hear about their experiences, their challenges, how we can support, understand what support they might want or need, and celebrate that, because together we are definitely stronger. One of the things that I also do outside of work is work really closely with a charity called Queer Britain. And if you haven't heard about us or want to know more, then please get in touch with me or reach out to one of us at Queer Britain. And we're looking to stand up the first LGBTQ plus bricks and mortar museum. And in that work, it's important that we have all of our voices represented. So we will be capturing the history, the queer history of people from Britain, and so that we're creating a safe space for the LGBTQ plus community, but also for anyone who wants to know more about our history, but also making it accessible to everyone across Britain. So like I said, if that is something that you'd like to find out more about, please get in touch with me, and I would love to share more about the work that we're doing. Thank you so much for having me part of this event, and enjoy the rest of the conference.